Welcome everyone on the next session during this conference. I hope you enjoy your time here. This time we will talk about CI/CD, what we can do in order to plan it on the a little bit more complicated level, higher level than just project or team. Right, so I would like to take you into the journey related to my framework, which I've created some time ago and already proven in real life. So I hope you will enjoy it and you will find it useful for your daily work. So let's continue then. My name is Piwosz. I am a lead system engineer at EPAM. I've been working there for 3.5 years right now. Also, I am DevOps Institute ambassador, AWS community builder, and CD Foundation ambassador. So I have a lot of free time to do things. So first, let's consider how we do CI/CD, right? So generally, this is our code, right? We've got some environments. Our people know this specific tool or tools. Perfect. So then we've got our pipeline. Great, right? So like common scenario. I think you can find a lot of similar things what you saw already in your career. We consider during preparation for CI/CD, for creating those pipelines, a couple of elements. So environments, as I said just a second ago, tools, right? We know these tools, we know that tools, etc., etc. Sometimes even we think about tests, which will be included into the pipeline. How we do release, but this is just like a different level already. Maybe even sometimes we consider branching strategy, which we use. And some of teams are mature enough to think about revert or rollback procedures, right? So these elements are quite common, which we can take into consideration. But what can go wrong with this? Well, a lot. Let's say this way, a lot, right? So this time we will look on CI/CD from the different view, from helicopter view. And we will not talk about how engineer need to implement the pipeline, but how organization should implement CI/CD. We'll not talk about the pipeline itself, but about the process, how to approach the process of CI/CD in the organization. Something what becomes more and more important when we start talking about scaling, right? So first element in this puzzle is organization, and this is a very critical element. Why? Because many things, many operation, many elements of the structure came really from the Conway's law. So what is Conway's law? In very simple terms, this is the design, the definition of Conway's law says to us that the design of the system is a mirror of the communication structure in the organization. And yes, I can confirm this is the reality, right? And how we build our environments, how we build our applications, how we build our DevOps approach really is coming from Conway's law, right? And communication structure, how the teams are collaborating, cooperating, etc., 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 right? So here are going further with this topic, very important is how we create our organization, right? How we do things there, how we structure the teams, how we structure the communication. And the example here, very popular nowadays, what makes me very happy because this is a really, really good book. team topologies. This can give us the base how we will structure our approach to CI/CD. Next element of the puzzle, environments, right? So how many of them we've got, what we use, for what we use the environments, right? How we structure those environments, who is responsible for them, etc., etc. So this is quite important, especially if we talk about how we will structure the pipeline. So completely differently it will be done for situation where we have, for example, 5 environments, and completely different is when it will be 2 of them, right? Branching strategy. So I would say that everything starts with the code, and generally version control system, branches are the first place where this cooperation starts, right? So what kind of strategy we select? Trunk, Git flow, GitHub flow, maybe related to stories, maybe even environmental, right? So the worst possible, but still possible. How we will structure code, what we do with documentation, what we do with versioning, etc., etc. How we design repositories. What I mean by that, so do we use monorepo or not? Do we follow GitOps approach, and we've got everything in the repository, like infrastructure, etc., etc., or not? Do we have separate repository for infrastructure or not? How we manage integrations, do we have them? Feature toggles, do we have them or not? How we approach to testing, and here I'm not saying about unit tests, etc., etc., but more like a TDD, PDD, things like this. So this becomes very, very important piece of information, right? So like branching strategies on the beginning of the road, the delivery strategy, we can say that's it on the end, right? So what I mean by delivery strategy, of course, in CI case, what are the triggers, step builds, what kind of tests we use during the build, quality gates, responsibilities, communication, escalations, right? Things like this for continuous delivery, which can be our strategy for delivery. What is the point where the automation stops, right? Where this manual intervention is needed? Who is responsible for continuing or for to manage this moment? How we will notify those responsible people? How we will escalate if there will be no answer from them? So quite important also to configure this approach, right? After the continuous delivery, we can go to continuous deployment, and now things become a little bit more complicated because we need to have very well defined actions, very well defined triggers between the stages, acknowledgements, rollbacks procedures, right? How we monitor, how we communicate any case of error or fail of the pipeline, because this is quite important when we talk about the fully automated pipeline. What kind of testing strategies we have, how we integrate those tests inside the pipeline, how we deal with environments, right? What we do between stages. Do we do tests, or maybe we have separate stages for or whatever, right? So what will happen between my, for example, QA and pre-prod, or pre-prod and prod, right? What kind of deployment strategies we have, right? And this is quite important because we have a lot of them, and they will behave a little bit differently, like blue-green, blue-violet. You can find multiple colors as a some different colors for violet, right? But I have tendency to be colorblind, so I don't care. AB deployments, canary deployments, rolling deployments, even recreate, right? And now imagine the situation that you have two microservices very closely cooperating together. They are deployed in the same time, because this is quite possible, right? Two teams, and one team is deploying this in the recreate way, and second with the canary. What can go wrong? Almost everything, right? So this is quite a sensitive place and moment in the scope, right? Okay. Next element, artifact management. What we do with our artifacts, right? So as we know, CI ends when we build the artifact, and CD starts with taking this artifact and doing something. So this moment is quite important. So what kind of tools we use to store our artifacts, right? And here I can I identified two types or of the artifacts storages. One I called loosely integrated. So this is something like, for example, S3 in AWS, right? So you build your artifact, create, for example, a zip file or exec or the something like that, and you send it to S3, right? And you use S3 as your storage. Loosely coupled means in this case, or loosely integrated means in this case, that it's quite easy to move this artifact somewhere else, right? And it is not the tool, let's say, very connected to the pipeline tool itself. In the opposite side, we have something what I called integrated or highly integrated. For example, Azure DevOps, right? Azure DevOps has built-in kind of artifact management system. So the toolkit, then how we name our artifacts, the naming convention, very important element, because imagine the situation that you need to manage your artifacts not like last two versions, but artifacts for the last 15 years and next 15 years. It is possible. There are industries like that, right? How you will play with access management to the artifacts. Who is responsible, or who is allowed to send artifacts? Who is allowed to retrieve artifacts? And who is the admin, right? Those elements are quite important. Then we have SDLC. So what we can say here, it's quite simple. What is the SDLC of the product, right? Agile, waterfall, whatever. But do you have this SDLC also to CI/CD, right? Is CI/CD treated as an internal or external product / platform, however we will call it, right? Quite important to understand the the connectivity between teams, elements, products, services, components, etc., etc. Quality gates, another very important element. What kind of quality gates we have? Because if we have manual quality gates, we will not have continuous deployment. Simple. If we have hybrid quality gates, we will not have continuous deployment, right? In order to have continuous deployment, we need to have automated quality gates. That's simple like that. With quality gates, how we will notify and who will be notified by quality gates if something is broken? What kind of metrics we will collect from the system, right? Starting with DORA metrics, and because we can, let's say, we can feed DORA metrics with also with metrics from quality gates. What kind of delays we are allowed to do, right? Because, for example, if we start to doing, for example, end-to-end tests, which can take 4 hours, Not necessarily we can go with like every 5 minutes deployment, because it will be quite impossible, right? And of course, what are responsibilities of people around, right? Capabilities, and here we are talking about more soft elements, right? Like team composition, structure, maturity of the team, the knowledge. And so knowledge, I mean experience, I mean knowledge, I mean, knowledge, knowledge of the tools, right? So things like that. Cooperation inside the team, between the teams. People constraints are here also here, right? What kind of tooling is used by people and by organization, right? Constraints, I mentioned this a second ago, so there are a lot of constraints we should be aware of for starting with business type, right? Because our CI/CD need to be constructed differently for the company which has very important service. For example, the web page with pictures of cats, and you can comment those pictures and put your own. And for example, some healthcare or gas and oil or space program. Right? The CI/CD need to be a little bit different, unfortunately or fortunately, right? Because there are industries with very strict regulations, and CI/CD as part of this industry need to meet those regulations, right? So this is the first constraint. Another one, connectivity boundaries, right? If our system, our platform is not allowed to use third-party tooling in the internet, it will mean immediately that we cannot use, for example, Azure DevOps, right? Because even if we can have agents in our on-prem, it's very common. Still, Azure DevOps itself is in cloud. And this may be boundary. And this leads to another constraint, security constraint, right? Tooling constraint, another element of the same topic. People can be also the constraint, the knowledge, the maturity, how they react, how they cooperate, etc., etc., etc. Time, also constraint, right? So how quickly, how fast we need to take the code and deliver. Technical constraints like triggers, like integrations, etc., etc. For example, here you can say, oh, what's the problem, right? All right, so you've got Bitbucket on-prem and you want to use AWS code pipeline. Of course you can. But the problem is that you need to have a very crazy wiring between those two elements, because there is no direct integration between code pipeline and Bitbucket, right? And please remember, Bitbucket on-prem, not Bitbucket enterprise in cloud, right? So these things are quite important. Now, next topic, responsibilities. Again, some soft topic about people mainly, right? So who are our people? What are the processes? Who is responsible for what? What are the contact points? What are the escalations procedures? I know we love escalations, but honestly, a more mature, more big your company is, the escalations procedures, paths must be established, because they will be needed in some point. Hopefully not the long term, but they will be used in some point. And when the situation developed that way that you need to escalate something, it's better to know at that point, not to look for and think what I should do now, right? Releases. We've got different kind of approach to releases, and this topic releases is not about the delivery itself. It's about the process of, you can think about this like, for example, ITIL, right? So do you create your like a bundle of changes and release in one time? Do you have something like KB to give you the kind of opinion or thing like that or not, right? So this is like a procedural element which need to be involved. And if you've got something like that, again, you will not have the continuous deployment, right? Rollbacks. Quite important topic. What we will do if something will be bad in our code or whatever, right? And we've got multiple types of rollbacks, like rollback back and rollback forward. I know how it sounds, rollback forward, but it is possible, right? And if one team, example with this very closely connected components, if one team will go in one direction, second in the second, it may lead to problems, right? What is your restore time objective? What is your restore point objective? Also for CI/CD, the granularity, data loss, what we will do with databases. Those are topics which are quite important, right? Next element, KPIs. In KPIs here, I'm saying about SLA, SLO, and SLI, right? So service level agreement, service level objectives, and service level indicators, right? So I will not go deeper because we are running out of the time. Another element in this puzzle is DevOps, right? So the composition of DevOps, approach to automation, approach to the infrastructure, how DevOps practice is injected into organization, how cooperation looks like, what are the feedback loops, how DevOps is measured, if is measured at all. And monitoring. In monitoring section, we need to cover like metrics, tools used for the monitoring, responsibilities, what we do with events, what we do we have any automated actions, alerting, logging, etc., 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 right? Do we have like a single place where we can observe everything, right? And measurements. For measurements, I meant not monitoring. This was the previous section. Right now, I say about measuring how well we do things, right? So DORA metrics are the first place to start, right? With DORA, we have like a 4 general metrics split it into 2 sections. First is throughput, where we have deployment frequency and lead time cycle, and stability, right? So time to recover, change failure rate. Important for CI/CD as well. And all of those elements gives us like some structure, some mind map. This mind map here is version 0.1 of my framework. Right now I'm working on 0.4, so kind of upgraded one. Very soon there will be a web page with it. So if you are interested in receiving this mind map, let me know. My contacts will be on the last slide. And observe my LinkedIn profile because I will publish this web page very soon. And this mind map helps us a lot in order to understand of the organization needs and help us to, let me say that, architect the vision, architect the CI/CD, right? Why I said architect? Because really, if we take this all elements like organization, branching, SDLC, quality gates, responsibilities, etc., 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 we can quite easily connect them with all quality attributes from the architecting perspective, solution architecting, or even enterprise architecting, right? So like all these abilities or ilities, right? So capacity, scalability, interoperability, usability, reliability, etc., etc., etc. So there is interconnection in that, and generally what I've done already a couple of times, I use this framework to discuss architecture. Right? So on the end, we can say that CI/CD may look completely differently from different point of view. Right? So if we see only simple element, it doesn't matter. Many things do not matter at the time, right? But if we start to work with like 1,000, 10,000 pipelines, the complexity may be a little bit too much to give the complete freedom to the teams, right? So why this approach is good? Because we can architect the vision, because we can align project stakeholders and business in like a one way, right? We can build common understanding of what is and what is not possible, right? And we can unify tech stack, knowledge, and people. And please remember, I'm not saying here about unifying tech stack that I order all teams to use Jenkins. It's not the point, right? Unifying tech stack is more related to things like one team ordered some licenses, another one ordered some other licenses, and in fact we are paying a lot of money for multiple tools which are used in very, very, very limited scope, right? It's not a good way, really, right? And I'm, I like to think about this framework as a kind of Rosetta Stone of CI/CD, right? Because we can translate things between business, stakeholders, engineers, architects, and security people even, right? So this gives us this framework gives us the possibility to talk with all of them, in fact, in the same time, right? What is very, very, let's say, good for cooperation. So I promised contacts to me. So here you are, my LinkedIn and my homepage. So if you wish to stay in contact with me, I'd be glad to contact with you, and I would like to encourage you to ask questions if you have any on my LinkedIn, for example. I will try to answer to all of them. If you have any ideas, more ideas, what can this framework contain, also let me know, right? Because this is something what I developing very hard right now, and hopefully this will be useful in the future. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. I hope this session was enjoyable for you, and you like the framework. If yes, contact with me, as I said. If no, as well, contact with me as well, right? And say, no, this is like a whatever. Hopefully it will be not for you. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.